Hello,
Okay.
everyone. All right. Should we wait a few minutes or ready to go?
I think we can get started. Savannah,
All
take it
righty.
away.
Perfect timing, Firas.
It starts with an
Welcome,
ambulance.
everyone. Welcome, everyone, to our first episode of Beers with VCs, where we have casual conversations about the less talked about aspects of venture capital and startup building. We are your hosts, Sabrina Passman and Simon Lancaster, and today we are very excited to be joined by Firas Khalifeh, one of our most incredible, gritty founders that we've ever met, and honestly, a huge impetus for Simon and I turning to venture full time. Welcome, Firas.
Welcome, Firas.
I think first things first, we got to go around the room and talk about what beers we're drinking.
Yeah.
You want to start, Simon?
Right. Sure. Drinking 805 from Firestone, one of my favorite breweries. This is not my favorite beer of Firestone. Unfortunately, we're out of Mind Haze, which is my favorite beer. The
Mind
high
Haze,
alcohol
I've heard that
content.
before.
Yeah, Mind Haze, high alcohol content, hazy IPA. They've got it like a 6.5 and then an 8%.
Oh shit! I need to look at
Firas, you're on mute, Firas, if you want to go next.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I should have the Rathaus, which is very Berliner. Unfortunately, it's not here. But I got Budweiser today, and
Amazing.
it says
Classic.
like it's a classic, and it says owned by Czech Republic. But there was an argument whether it's American style beer by a Belgian company. So it's a classic.
we were looking that up on Wikipedia prior. There is a lot of confusion on Google apparently.
Today I'm drinking Fieldwork Pulp, one of my favorite. It's a dope brewery, very good. I just looked up the alcohol content. It's 6.9%. I don't know if it's high or low, but it's a delicious hazy. Highly recommend.
Decent alcohol content. 6.9
Yeah,
definitely on the higher end.
I'm gonna have to take it slow.
Fieldwork is awesome. It's a really good California local brewery. They have some really tasty hazies and stuff.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, let's get into it. So I think, Firas, as we mentioned, Simon and I have been incredibly inspired by your story, and we're really excited to dig into it a little bit today. I think we can just start with, what was the spark of creating Carbon Mobile?
That's a tough one to start with. All right. I mean, first of all, I'm very happy to be here on this podcast, especially with you both. And at the same time, Carbon started, I think it's been more than 5 years now. And the spark back then was really more like a bit more playful than serious, I would say. I would not give like that kind of very visionary statement that we started with, you know. It was more playful. It was at the same time, like we were inspired by technology, by materials, inspired by, at that time specifically, like there was a hype of SpaceX and they were like looking at what kind of materials they were building rockets. Of course, carbon fiber. I was completely new to the space at the same time. And then comes the idea what kind of like materials where this material has been used in other places and where advanced materials has been used in other spaces. And of course, playing a lot with hardware and electronics, coming from software background originally, I was curious why we didn't see this kind of materials in electronics that we hold every day. That was really the start. Yeah.
And what was your origin story? I think even before you got into, like, I mean, that concept in itself is something that all of the big companies have been trying to look into for decades, I think. And it's so cool to me that you don't come from a traditional tech background, right? And tell me more about the origins of, have you always been a curious person? Like, what really caused this for you as something that you were like, I want to tackle this problem?
I think curiosity is a big thing. I think that's really the number one thing. I don't think like the factor of, I think like factors like being smart and working hard on a lot of this kind of stuff makes sense. But it's really like being inspired and being super curious about stuff, and at the same time, like really putting the hours and like all the sweat and tears behind it to do it, right? So I started Carbon. I was already working on different software, mainly software related startups, and also I work with different companies. And I was like started to work with a bit of with hardware, but not like to really build hardware. It's more like on the prototyping side. And yeah, when it comes to like when I started Carbon, it was really there was a lot of, let's say, in a good way to phrase it, like being an outsider, an outlier, and having this like no playbook to start with. Let's say that was the good part, and more the inspiring part. But at the same time, there was a lot of, I do believe like lack of knowledge that kids have really,
and big kids.
Well, not a lot of big kids can maintain that, right? And I would like it's really like something we struggle to maintain. And I really believe like this, what many founders have that is like this curiosity to jump into problems that you have no idea how to solve, and yeah, a bit of ignorance, let's say, in a good way. Like there's really that kind of recipe where a bit of ignorance and you're an outlier, but you get inspired to solve a problem. And then the starting point for us was, okay, who did what and who tried? And we were searching. And then from there, we decided, you know what, let's go to Asia and let's see who tried to produce carbon fiber parts. And we went there, we start to see some of the very big companies, OEMs including, they have some factories they partnered with and they left the projects behind. And we went to see those dead parts that never never see the light. And we were looking at like, okay, what's happened there? And we realized that there was technical issues related to some antenna.
I'm gonna pause you there because I wanna kind of pipe in about this, given my background. So, Carbon Mobile Mark II, the phone, as far as all of us know, it's the first true fully carbon fiber consumer electronic device.
Correct.
It's not that no one had envisioned carbon fiber consumer electronics devices prior. You know, like you envisioned it, but there were a lot of issues that you overcame. And there's like some really awesome and incredible intellectual property that you developed, which you mentioned, like as being an outsider, you think that helped you. And I agree. I think it did help you kind of with a fresh perspective. Look at the problem and not think about all the hurdles that were unknown for you, right, ahead of you. So that's kind of what you're getting at now, right? Which is you started to discover that there were major issues after you'd already set out with the goal of making a carbon fiber.
Yeah, that's the second part, right? Is yeah, I appreciate that, Sam. Yeah, definitely. I think when we started with the project, of course, the idea was not original, like to come up with a carbon fiber connected device, especially a smartphone. And we realized that there was some kind of PR around that from some companies. And we saw inspiration even on forums, like a lot of people talking about it. And we were like, why this material doesn't work there?
No one had shipped it though, right?
Yeah,
no one had shipped it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No one had shipped it, and everyone tried to kind of maybe work around it. But then we thought, okay, if this is going to happen, if we will have like something made out of carbon fiber, if you look at Formula One cars or space or etc., it will give you the world's thinnest, lightest, and maybe strongest. And also on sustainability aspect, that's where we're kind of like very surprised as well with how much impact it can make. So we thought about that. And then we started like looking at the problem, and then we went to China. I put all my money, and I sold everything I have back then when I was in Dubai, and I started like to dig deeper into the problem. And it was funny because we were solving one problem at a time, because at the first, like, we thought that it's only the antenna transparency, and then we solved that. And then going there, but then we realized that the material has huge noise and antenna issues, electrical issues. Without going through too much into technical details there, we realized that problem roughly around 2.5 years into the project, because not only we needed to test the materials, but actually we needed to put it into a product. So that requires us to build the board, to build the whole product completely, then put it in the test labs, only to realize this is when some people in the team start saying, okay, this looks like a paperweight product, right? It doesn't do anything. It has a huge antenna issues, but that was 2.5 years into the project. And at that time, I have the commitment that I made to investors. I have collected money from investors. I made the promise, and I have a team that the vision was that we need to ship this, because what's beyond is really limiting us by really shipping this product. So, and this is where things turned from a cool R&D project and fun into this marathon of fighting and believing in something that everyone around you, even the best experts that's sitting on the table, that are much more experts than me, that they shipped products in their lifetime, millions of them, they're telling me this is not going to work. And not only that, at that time we raised roughly around 2 million euros, and they told me, oh yeah, I'm a bit better to solve this problem. You gotta have at least 10 millions and change the concept completely. Oh, this material not going to work for this project. I heard that. So that was the moment where we needed to there are moments where founders need to kind of pivot, and there's moments where you need to trust your gut feel and say, I know I can solve this. And yeah, it was a pivotal moment for us, to decide what to do here, because it was really the shutdown of the company. And yeah, gladly we managed to solve this problem, and then we really I got my hands really into the product, got my hands dirty. I was in China for 2.5 years, sitting between the factories, and being kicked out a couple of times because they got fed up working with us, and they with no results really on solving this kind of problem. So yeah.
What made you actually go to China, Firas?
Wow, that question, okay, very good question. That takes me back to the times where I was just imagining China and imagining Shenzhen and imagining this production area, and I do still remember the first time I went there, having zero network whatsoever, nobody. And the only place to go for me was to go to an area called Huashanpei. For those who know it, for those who don't know it, is a shopping area for geeks, right?
The great electronics market. It's really like a night market for electronics.
Yeah,
it's a crazy place. You can find everything there.
It's amazing. I went there, and that was really my starting point. And I was running between these tiny little shops where super handy people working on stuff and trying to find out who are the factories who are giving them the parts behind them, and going on Alibaba and trying to find who are the factories that are producing stuff in Shenzhen. That was really the starting point, and didn't realize what does it take.
I'm gonna pause you. I have not heard this part of the story before, Firas. So you're telling me that basically you were in the honeymoon phase, where you had this amazing idea, wanted to get it to work, had factory issues, and in order to fight against all of the experts telling you no, you went physically to a night market and asked those vendors where they were sourcing their components from and built your network, bootstrapped it literally from the ground from that. That's so incredible. Yeah. I hadn't heard that part of the story before. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, but just to connect the dots, I was going already to China 2 years before this problem happened. So it was really the starting point of the company. I started to go there. And I started with zero network, zero partners. And I remember we only have a translator helping us at that time. realizing later that an app would work better than a translator for translating. That was a funny story. But then, yes, actually, when we built a small network there and people who helped us, by the time we have this issue, we have multiple issues happening in the product lifetime and the R&D of the material as well. But there was one major issue that happened, and this happened right at COVID. Like at 2 days, 3 days before COVID starts in China, we have this issue. So we just realized this is the end of the company. Like even if there's a solution, there's no way we can ship because we were still fundraising, and all the investors said, okay, let's wait for this thing, what's called COVID in China, and then it hits Europe, and then things change. And we were developing the solution within that time. It kind of COVID gave us an opportunity to fix the problem, because at that time we have 23 suppliers we're working with, and all of them they had to stop during COVID. By the time they recovered in China, they started knocking our doors and say, what's happening with your project? At that time, we have no solution yet. And we're still working on finding a solution. And we switched completely like a process as well on how we use also production for carbon fiber, using a process that was made mainly for manual parts or parts that, like a few of them, like boat, Formula One, cars, or space rocket. But when you think about like scalability of smartphone production and electronics, completely different game. So we have reliability issues, quality control issues, scalability issues. And like this, both one big technical problem, one big manufacturing problem happen at the same time. And yes, like there was moments where being on the factory floor and fighting with the engineers, with the suppliers for every single bit of the like what you envision as a product. It's so easy for like a design team or engineering team to like drop the ball on something, right? For example, if the product thickness was 6.3 when we shipped it, and there was many conversation, and every bit of the product, like every single component might have like the thickness issue, and we needed to increase like the camera or something. And every time we say, okay, let's make it 6.4, 6.5. And then I come into the room and say, no way, we're not going to do that. And they said, no way, we cannot make it thinner. And then we start to work out solutions that are like really unconventional for what they used to do. And there was a lot of unconventional stuff. And I think that part where you see
basically, yeah.
I do believe that the founders, I that's why I love like engineers, founders, you know, or founders coming with technical backgrounds, because they, like if they manage to combine the vision with what they see on the level of details, you're almost like having a bird's eye, that you're able to foresee the whole company, and you see the strategy, you see everything connecting to us all the way from the product to the brand to the marketing to the finance to the runway to the legal, and all the way to the like tiniest screw in your product, and what is the dimensions inside the product. It's like it goes to that level, and I've seen some founders like that, and I think that's also what we did at Carbon, and we pushed that, and then it became kind of a culture, because when people whether in Europe and China back then, when they realized that's how we do things and there is no compromise on anything, they would just fight for it. Next time I'm not in the room, you know. So yeah, that's something I appreciated after that. And they realized that it's very important to realize that vision and to realize that product. Yeah, and then everyone followed through afterward.
Totally. So like setting the precedent that you are setting the bar super high, but you will be on the ground with them to work through it. I think that balance really set you guys apart probably, and got your manufacturing partners on board to a level in which people that were working remotely could not have achieved. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think setting the bar high only without like really executing, especially as a founder, being able to show that like you're not just telling people what to do, and because you're, you know, you have this idea that you want it to happen and then you shout at people or whatever. No, you get your hands dirty and you get to do the job. that's where really people get inspired. I mean, like you hear stories sometimes like about Elon Musk, like, sleeping in the factory or sleeping at Twitter office. Although this might sound like ridiculous sometimes, but it has meanings, and definitely when also the engineering behind the product and what goes through, so that also gives a huge value to the team.
Yeah, it shows
This is why,
shows
we titled
empathy.
this episode
builds.
the Masterclass in Grit, and go for it, Simon.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're hitting on it, right? It shows to your team that you're empathetic with them, shows that you are willing to do what it takes to get it done, and it's inspiring, right? They want to follow you.
Yeah, exactly. And also there is something like, then we as a human, like the what is possible and what is not possible, unless you're breaking physics. It's really mostly in our head in many things. I mean, yeah, some stuff are hard for regulations reason, whatever reason, but it's really when you show the team in different examples that what was everyone thinking this was impossible, then you make it possible. First time, second time, this become a culture that even they see it happening in front of them from somebody, not the imaginary persona, but actually in front of them. Then they might say, okay, this is happening. And it's kind of embedded in whatever they do day to day as well.
How many people told you over the years that it wouldn't be possible to ship a fully carbon fiber enclosure phone? How many experts? I know you had some really like important experts that you had falling outs with, right? And that ended up causing some drift in the company. But
we have like major issues with some like experts who people within the company respected, and even people that I reached out to and they said it's impossible. It was many of them.
What made you keep going? What inspired you despite all of that? Was it you talked about the commitment to your partners, investors, etc., that you had committed to in your young and blind and naive days?
Okay, you're tapping.
As a computer scientist that wanted to design a phone, a hardware device.
There was multiple reasons. God damn it! I think it's. I think that like I'm being vulnerable here, right? I want to like this.
It's not like this is being broadcast to the entire internet or anything.
No, not quite sure.
Only our LinkedIn network.
Yeah, I think this beer is working. It's the beer is working.
That's the intent.
Yes, exactly. Okay, I think big part of it is really fear. I really do believe that fear played a big role in not letting go. I mean, we like, you hear in life, like, let go of stuff. And I think for founders, like letting go is extremely hard, especially after you put all, like everything you have into this company and you compromise a lot. You compromise not only like, in life, you have this balance between work life, family, friends, and relationship. And you realize that you put all into one single thing, and like going out without anything and realizing that you lost a lot of stuff. Yeah, well, a small portion of it, a good portion of it was that fear. And another portion of it was like this resilience on getting it done and fighting for it. And really that you have some sort of gut feel that you're gonna make it. I think that was important. I think that was the important thing, of course. That's
the light at the end of the tunnel.
There is that, and there's something inside that tells you that this is really possible, even if everyone telling you it's not possible. But when everyone tells you it's not possible, and you really like you wake up in the morning and you realize that it's a shit show, is like from investors being shaken, the team, partners as well. When you get this whole package happening, it will be hard to drive, and that fear sometimes make you it just, I wouldn't say that fear for all people works the same, but for me it worked as a fuel. That was like really my fuel to to get through it.
Yeah, push the boundaries. Totally. Yeah, I think it is so uncommon for people to admit that, but I think every single founder feels that so deeply. And I'm sure that we'll get comments after this episode of people like, I have never wanted to vocalize that, but it is so true. It's like, it's the fear of staking everything that you've put out there. You can't even consider it not coming true. Like, you have to make it come true. There's no other option, basically. And I think
like
that
the ultimate imposter syndrome. Sorry to interrupt this.
No.
It's like the ultimate imposter syndrome. Like if you let that failure happen, then oh shit. All my
definitely. There's a huge part of that. I would be happy to tap into it. And I saw, Sam, you posted on imposter syndrome before, which I really appreciated that article. Definitely, like fear of failure, and especially when you bet everything on it. And when you're a founder of a startup, especially if you're a CEO as well, when you've been doing all the type of stuff, that you end up realizing what I'm good at. Like, am I a branding guy or a marketing guy or sales guy, or because you keep changing hats, right? So even like your expertise that you are, like, you love working with tech, you start to diversify yourself to work with other stuff because you can handle legal, finance, and everything else. And then by the end of that process, when like really become a shit show and everything is falling apart, and of course, when things are getting really, really bad, whether it's you're raising money or you have a product issue, that moment, it really shakes you as a founder. You realize you might have lost a bit of trust from people around you. Not necessarily everyone, but it's just like the tiniest thing, sometimes it can affect you. Yeah, and of course, as a founder, you don't have a boss to tell you every day, hey, do this and this. So like sometimes you wake up in the morning and you just wish that there's a boss tells you, like,
someone give me a sheet of things of today that I need
just
to do.
Tell me what to do today. Because I really have no idea. You wake up and it's bad news. Totally. And then you end up the day with good news, or it can be mixed.
Yeah. Well, I think there's the thing that's impressed me the most about working with you is that you have this vulnerability and this deep desire to succeed, but you pair that with a insane optimism, and like the way that you interact with your team like really builds everyone up, and the way that you communicate makes everything feel possible. And I think that also is why you've achieved the successes that you've achieved, is that you're able to balance like this deep motivation with showing a path to success. And I think that's incredibly rare, to have someone that can really embody both parts of it. And I think I want to like dig into that. So after this like insane hard patch through COVID, with all of these hurdles, you ultimately did get a phone shipped, which is incredible on a $2 million budget. Like, that's absolutely unheard of. Would love to hear more about like how that felt, like to actually get your product through the finish line, and all the press around it. You're sitting behind your Red Dot Awards. Like, tell us about that phase of the process.
Wow, that's incredible. Thanks, Arina. I really appreciate what you say. And I do remember, like, it's just slightly before I tell you about how it felt after I shipped. I do remember one thing, like, just crossed me now. It was the day that we have not the mass production shipment, but we have like what we call them, the founder edition. And that was like a limited edition of like 300 units. And that was like for very close carbonizer community, we call them. And those units arrived to me during COVID to my place. And we were late already to ship those. And I have those coming to me in boxes. and I need now to personally sign on each one of them and send it to those carbonizers. And I do remember that I couldn't open the boxes for like roughly 2 days. I couldn't dare to open the boxes.
You were nervous about it.
I was so nervous. I was so scared. I was like, damn it, this whole 5 years is now in these boxes. And not only that, now I need to trust not only myself, I need to trust this whole team I'm working with. Although I know that they've been shipping millions of products and that's why I choose to work with them. But still, I have this idea in my head that those people, I need to trust now everyone that's worked with me. And now I need to ship those. And I couldn't open them. And it took me 2 days. And I seriously, I have like so much stress that I needed to vomit and I needed to, like, I have so much pain in my belly. It was
real,
really,
yeah.
It was really, really painful until like the moment where I went for a moment, like for a long walk, and I started to think about all of these things, and I started reflecting all the way to like, times before carbon as well. And I was like, okay, trust the process. You've done everything right. Just do it. Just do it. And I started to open the boxes, sign them off, and then shipping one by one. And I got like the team coming to my place, and we were working like to every day until 5 a.m. in the morning and shipping these boxes, preparing the packaging and everything. That was the first shipment. This means more to me than when we did the mass production shipment. Of course, when we did the mass production, it was like all the news. We got a lot of media. We got a lot of awards, and it was also a period. It was overwhelming as well, because all the way we went from being a stealth company for a couple of years to that moment where the news were
press
like
just opened, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the news were the titles where you would see something like the first ever carbon fiber smartphone made by Carbon Mobile, and this kind of stuff. Like it was like really breakthrough. And then we start to see traction coming from some of the OEMs, like coming to us and asking, "Hey guys, we heard about this
organically, right? Like they came to you, like someone that had just built this thing that you felt was literally from scratch. Like you got the attention of giant names in industry, of people that you yourself had been following, coming to you and saying, this is an incredible thing that you've achieved. Like describe that moment. Like, is there a point in that journey where you actually felt like I have arrived, I have done it? Or, I mean, tell me more about that.
That moment, this is where my imposter syndrome triggered. Because I was like, wait a minute, are you sure these big giant companies coming to us, we are a small tiny startup and asking for this? And it was a really big moment to realize and to understand it. And then like really understanding that, yes, we did this. And reflecting back and reflecting on the awards, we got major industry awards related to this kind of, like related to the exact type of materials, like JC Award, Red Dot Design Award. And also the media talking about it, experts. I spoke a lot with experts about this. So we got those companies, and then it took me time to realize it, but also those giants coming in, different OEMs, even tier 2 as well. We didn't get to immediately know how to work with them, and it took us time to like really figure out how to work with these kind of companies. And that's where we got like extra help with Simon to help on that as well later on, to figure out how to work with that. And that's where like realized that there's a bigger fish and there's a bigger opportunity for the company as well.
Okay, and we'll get to that, the pivot. And I think what Sabrina wanted to do is acknowledge like the insane accomplishments that you've made with the phone shipping on T-Mobile in Germany, really proving the technology being real and at the highest possible TRL level in customers' hands, using it every day. So we wanted to build you up a little bit before we beat you down, which is the next topic, which is all the, we want to talk about like specifically the like major challenges, more specifically, like what were they and how did you overcome them? How did you get through them? And I think we brainstormed a little bit before the call on a few topics. I'll let you, think which one you want to start with, or I can randomly pick one out of a hat.
All right, I trust you.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I like this. I like having this.
I think to preface this part of the conversation, like obviously a founder's journey is never linear, right? It is never a straight up into the right situation. There are going to be super, super high highs and super, super low lows. And being able, in fact, you started surfing recently, right, Firas? Like you have to figure out how to ride these waves. And I think in these types of conversations, it's important to highlight the lows, right? Because you have to understand how to get out of them. And I think the next series of challenges that we'll be going through are ones that you've all successfully climbed out of. And that's why we want to sort of just show them for the community here, for people to understand, like lows happen and you can work out of them, but like be real about what they are, To preface that, go for it, Simon. Which one do you want to start with?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. Yeah, we all have our insane challenges. I think there is definitely more of an openness around talking about those challenges once they've been overcome and once some success has been achieved. Not so much while we're in the challenges. And in particular, obviously, that's the time when we're most vulnerable and when we could use the most help, right? So I think there is some community building to be done around, supporting each other through tough challenges. And I think one step towards that is just starting to talk about these things a little bit more openly.
I think before we tap into like a specific one of those examples, which we will, but I just want to reflect on what you said also, Sabrina, and also like what you said, Simon, here. Simon, so it's of course great that we like approach each other, especially founder community, to seek for help. The problem that happened is that most founders, when big problem happen, or even small, but especially big ones, they get like it's not easy to approach help unless the help is like you are able to be super vulnerable to expose, like to talk about it. Most of the time, founders, they feel that they're responsible for this help and they are part of that problem and they need to solve it. And before they tell investors or they tell people that they might trust, they might try to solve it themselves. And even it might get even much, much worse before they realize that they need to tell others. And it might be already maybe late, maybe not. That's an issue I find. I struggled with that, and I think a lot of founders do that. They wouldn't approach help until they try to solve it themselves.
I think that's a good segue too, like finding the right partners early on in the process where you don't feel like you have to hide everything and carry like the weight of the world on your shoulders. Like identifying it, any company, no matter if like you're the biggest brain in the world that like has everything figured out, like there's going to be a point in time in which you need to like ask for external knowledge in some capacity, and being able to be transparent with your early team about what those challenges are and knowing that you can count on them to not judge you, to like just figure out, like you're building a family, right? Like you're building someone who is going to like be in the trenches with you, and selection of that early team is so critical. And I think it's particularly hard when you're starting something from scratch of who do I know that is actually going to, like, how can you know how someone's going to perform when the world's on fire before the world actually goes on fire? But I think it's, finding really genuinely open people like yourself, Firas, like you put that out into the world. And I think that's what you attract as well. And I think it's a really critical aspect to success.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think a lot of founders, the problem is that like with the whole being a founder for a startup, it gets very personal. So those kind of relationships also, they get to have this kind of good personal connection, not only a good professional connection. And finding that on a co-founder, for example, or a mentor or a network, even within the team, that you're being super vulnerable to talk to your team and tell them like, I'm having this issue and I need your help. It's not easy because, yeah, I mean, sometimes the ship is sinking, and
it has to be all hands on deck, basically.
And you really
it can't just be one person with a little bucket trying to unsink the ship. It has to be a whole team effort,
Yeah, exactly. But also there are some times where the whole team is down as well, and everyone see that everything is going down, and investors see everything down, and there's only one person left. There's only one person left who is leading this ship, and that person needs to come through and say that no, it's not yet down, and we're still moving. You gotta wake up and stand in front of them and tell them, no, we're good. We're doing this. You go and you meet your next investor. If you're raising money, you're running out of money, you go, and you go all in with your energy. You close that phone call, and you might go straight to bed and cry. It can't be that.
But you do it, right? And that is a masterclass in grit, right? It's like pulling everything that you have to like set the right course for the rest of the team so that you can achieve what you need to achieve. And
yeah, definitely.
This may, for those who've never been in the startup world, this may sound ridiculously dramatic, but I assure you that there are times where this is actually real life, and it is what's required, And I think that, Firas, more than anyone that we've met, has really dug deep and like exhibited this time after time, in many different scenarios. I think actually that might be a good segue to go into the next challenge if we're open to it, Firas. I think the one that would be interesting is. I
want to tap into one thing actually on the previous one. I just want to tap one thing that I think the ego of the founder and being too much attached to the startup, that what makes even much more trouble. Like when you're so much attached to it, when you have certain ego, when you're afraid of losing, and you think that everything now, all your life is built by this, and
that you are the startup and the startup is
startup.
We've talked about this. This is an interesting one.
And forgetting that you are the one who created this in the first place, and that you can drop this ball and wake up tomorrow and start something else, maybe, right? Those kind of things are really important, and really, of course, like having a good mental fitness as well. Like being able to always maintain a good mental fitness, whether it's meditation, whether it's going to gym, like whatever it is, like just being able to detach from those things. Because to be honest, everything I'm saying, when I meet founders, they would never talk about that. Majority of them. And the moment I start to be vulnerable and tell them about my last problem or whatever thing that I faced, whatever conversation, and then I just see them like, opening up very fast and telling me about their perspective and how they also have this issue. And then I tell them, who did you talk to about? Like nobody. Did you talk to your partner, to your spouse? Many of them, they wouldn't tell, and they would have this issue. And that issue, the problem of like, when you have this kind of issue happen, whether like overcome it in a partially way or maybe not, this will cause you confidence issue later on that might trigger even more imposter syndrome later in the future, even 1 year, 2 years later, whether in the same company later. I just wanted to highlight that point.
No, it's an excellent point, Firas, and I think that it just shows the importance of transparency early on with the network that you create, both in your company and outside too. It's often like too much to put on your own, have everything on your own shoulders, and that's what teams are for, is to share that burden. And you don't need, and what you're saying before about ego, completely correct. Like there are points where you'll need to drop the ego and find that right balance of still and being able to encourage and bring up the team when needed, but also sharing the burden across the organization. So I think that you've really, particularly in the lowest of lows, you've like figured out how to balance that extremely well. And I mean, look at you now. I mean, we're going to go into one more low before we go into the most recent high that I'm excited to talk about. And this low is right after the phone launched. I think everything was so wonderful, right? You were looking to scale, basically. That was like the next thing. And all you needed was a little bit of capital to really expedite that. And I think I want to also emphasize that up to that point, you did everything you did with only $2 million of funding. Like, that is so mind-boggling to me, because a similar project at any large OEM would have taken like at least 100x that to like launch a full new product line. So super incredible accomplishment. But I think to take it to the next scale, next step, basically, you're trying to figure out, how do I get the money? And so maybe we can talk about that funding journey before we got to where we are today.
The funding journey, like in a specific event or like in general?
Yeah, I'll be specific. So I know that when I first met you, it was in the context of you had secured a great, large, juicy check, and you're ready to just like hit the ground running and get the team together. And I want to talk a little bit about that experience of the check and what exactly happened there.
Yeah, I can be open about that, actually. And I think the reason I want to be open about that, and I hope that there's more founders listening, because I'm pretty sure they face these kind of issues and they keep it to themselves. I mean, like, startups are hard and deep tech is hard and fundraising is extremely hard in general. So, and then, like, how to say, things happen as well. That's not as common. And I think I got that experience. And yeah, we were raising Series A round, and we got an investor who committed to like lead the round and put a very big check, and actually pushed me to take other investors out from the round, because he wanted to be a bigger like check from his side. And of course, this was at the traction where we have the product ship, we have the awards, we have the media, where we have the perfect plan for fundraising, right? We planned for this moment. We have all the sales happening. We made very good revenues. So we were like ready, like fundraising ready for Series A. So we got this fundraise, we signed off, and he pushed out to get any other term sheet, because okay, we have this guy. And that investor, months after months, week after week, keep delaying. He kept delaying that the money is coming. And it was a big
signed term sheet, everything, right? Like, all the documentation was complete. It was literally just the final transfer, right?
Yeah. We signed a term sheet, and we signed a convertible note as well, like as an initial payment, to have the money faster, per se. And then we have the bigger term sheet for the whole round, and everything was supposed to come almost at the same time. And we have other investors were waiting as well, and he kept pushing and he kept delaying, and it will come. And he was like very nice, and we did our DD. And that's the thing, we did like very good DD on him and the family office, and we found people who were like managing banks, and they were working with him 10 years or 15 years ago, and we got all the green checks, and never experienced something like that ever. Although I experienced a lot of like cases where you see some fraud or even money down, like, you see stuff happening, but you avoid it always. But this was a very case for me, which was like extremely professional. And I don't know until today in details what's really happened. We have to drop at the end, and we were almost bankrupt. We just left, and we have to press the reset button and find a new way to readdress. Readdress from there.
That's an excellent point. Like, knowing when to call it and say, like, this is just not going to happen. But honestly, I think that this was kind of a blessing in disguise, and this is when really you were able to change your business model. Even I think like the previous vision for the company actually was a lot narrower than what you actually have changed it to be now. And talk me through that business model change and how, like, honestly, closing that door completely allowed you to expand the company like into this giant market that you see today.
Yeah, to be honest, I appreciate it for what happened on many levels. Personally, it was a big a big lesson to learn from and to learn about myself. The associate when the company, like, when the company get very big, to my, like, to relatively to my size, it just become you identify by the startup, and then when everything falls down, you lose kind of purpose in a way. Plus the fact that when you reach a moment where you have nothing to lose, that's a perfect place to actually for grow.
Yeah.
That was, yeah, and because, like, again, you maintain certain ego, and I did have my ego around, like, building the brand and everything. We have some sort of, okay, we will do licensing at some point. We were taking it easy, like the easier route to it. It was kind of secondary. And at that time, Simon came in and he pushed as well early on the licensing model. And he's like, look, you have a huge potential there. You should go to licensing now. And
what just for people who don't really understand the context, what is the implication of that? What does that mean? Like, basically, you were a consumer electronics company before.
Yeah, we were
competing
focused on
with
the brand more.
Yeah, you had a brand, you had a consumer device, which was revolutionary, but you were competing with the big guys, right? And meanwhile, you had an underlying technology that you didn't really realize was necessarily so valuable until some of those big guys actually came knocking on your door, right? Asking like, "Hey, what's up here? Can we use this?"
Yes, that happened, and at the same time, when I met you, and also you, like, you look at the tech and you realize that, hey, Firas is valuable as well. You give me extra validation. So, sorry, that's a typical Berlin. You get the signature of Berlin this way. Yeah, so there was a couple of signals coming in to say that licensing can be a very good switch. But of course, you wouldn't let go immediately. But then we got this big slap on the face with the investment round falling apart. And that made us to say, okay, we have nothing to lose right now. We are like reaching almost rock bottom. We have, at that time, you have the option to say, I can do anything I want. Do I keep doing this, which I really like, and I'm attached to it, or do I really like put my ego on the side and really look at what's valuable and what can be more impactful, and really like to allowing ourselves at that time to rethink what we have in our hands, and we realize, oh, wait a minute, the impact of this technology that we created, and if it goes across many OEMs and other companies that are asking for it, we will have much bigger impact. We will see this tech available on many more devices, not necessarily our brand, and it will be on other brands. And we will see, from sustainability aspect as well, we will see much bigger impact on e-waste, reducing e-waste across all the brands. So why we should push ourselves this direction? And this is where we pivoted the whole business model towards that direction. And we saw much better traction as well on all levels. From the investors conversation, partners, even with discussions with the OEMs, because we really strengthened our licensing model and our business offering to those OEMs. And then when we went there to validate it, we got very good response. And eventually we did sign a deal for licensing, which we cannot disclose now. Hopefully trying to ship this year. And we did sign an investment end of last year as well. And we still
can't talk about your most latest press release, right?
Yeah, it just happened this week. So that's really good. It just happened this week. We put the press release.
Tell us what it is.
It's been a month in the work. We've been working on this for a while now, and we're just very proud that finally the press release is out. It means a lot of work.
The press release with SABIC, and SABIC is the largest, I think, plastics manufacturer in the world. Is that accurate, Simon?
I think might be fair to say the top 5, maybe.
Yeah, I think Aramco is the largest petroleum. and Sabic is in the top 3 or 4, I think, plastics manufacturers in the world.
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting, like the fact that, just thinking about your origin story, Firas, like coming and building up this brand based off of an idea that you held on to with every fiber of your being, to now being able to influence one of the largest companies to understand that sustainability matters, that thinking about problems in new ways, you're able to influence these giant organizations to really commit and build together with you, specifically of all the people in the world. They picked you and your company to partner with and develop, right? And that's crazy. I mean, how do you feel that, seriously, like,
cheers to that.
For that type of success? I mean, like, you really can change the world, like the grit that you've exhibited through all of the different facets of your journey. It's like gotten to a point where like you're now eye to eye with these giant organizations.
I'm really happy to hear that, what you say.
I mean, it's true. It's you, Firas.
Thanks. And I really like the way you reflected on that. Yes, I sometimes think about it, and sometimes I even think about like how I grew up as a child and where I was and which school, and like what I'm doing today and what kind of influence I'm able to do with those big companies and on an industry, on people, on like inspiring people, like my closest network as well, and being able to eventually sign off with some of those big companies on investment or deals and stuff like that, and like being able to sit on a table with some like influential people in the industry. Yeah, it blows my mind sometimes. It's really, when I think about it, like, wow, you went far. Like, you've been, yeah, and I think like the sky is the limit. There's a lot more. Like, there's definitely a lot more to do. I think it's only like I always remember the way of thinking when I think about how I overcome those things. It's just all in my head, completely.
Totally, it's a mind game, and always having the like end goal and the end vision in sight, even if it's at the very edge of the horizon, you can barely see it. Like being able to pull that to the forefront and say, "We are going to get here, and I'm going to pull us there." And like that is something that you've exhibited time and time again. And again, it's like we're just so impressed by you, Firas, in every aspect.
Thank you, Sabrina.
So we're ending. Go for it.
Okay, I just want to say this, because I didn't see those things coming, right? And I agree with you. What you said is that I envisioned, like, I want to do this, and I just put all my energy, all my vision, all my passion, and like everything that I have, I put it into that, and I went all in. And then some people who came in, they helped me a lot. I couldn't do it myself, definitely not, but they were inspired by the energy and the vision that was there. And they came on to help, and then things start to open up. You never know, but you're just doing your job, and yeah I think that would happen always.
That's an excellent segue, actually. So every episode we want to end with a question, and our question is, who has been the most impactful person in your professional journey so far? And the reason why we like this question is because it really calls to that it takes a community really to build up any specific company, any specific amazing idea to come to market. So for you, Firas, who has been the most impactful person in your professional journey?
In this specific journey of Carbon Mobile, or in general?
We'll let you take it and whatever. Let's say we can do both. What's professional journey relating to carbon, and then also outside of carbon?
Yeah. I would say I thought about it. It crossed me, this question, I think around 10 days ago. It crossed me like, and I remembered a professor at university who believed in me, and who made his bet to get me to work with him on a very big project. Of him, that he have like certain liabilities by putting me in the project, because I was still in university, like I could work, but I'm still like not professional. And he gave me a very big responsibility there. And that was very important for me because it felt for almost the first time that there was somebody who looked at me in the eye and he said, I'm going to trust you. And I'm going to trust that you trust yourself. You're going to do this. And that was like a moment of unleashing myself for the first time, like really feeling it. Beside of whatever, like, my family helped me raise me and etc. But that was a different moment where I realized he didn't have to do that. And he did it. Yeah. That was, in general, I would say that person, his name is Sameh, and he was my teacher back then. And I remember him for that. Yeah.
Cheers
and the
to him. That's amazing.
Cheers to him. Yes.
Yeah. Cheers.
Yeah. I remember that I wanted to call him actually. He's in the US now, and I want to call him up to check.
Oh, you should.
Definitely. And I think in the company, it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell in my journey right now, but perhaps one thing that influenced me, I wouldn't say necessarily completely positively, but as a general, made a big impact was my ex-co-founder in this company, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Helped you weather the storm, I guess, of the first couple waves, right?
It's complicated.
Yeah. Okay. Well, cheers to your founder as well.
It's hard to tell, but yeah, that definitely changed me a lot. It changed me a lot. So cheers to that. It definitely also unleashed something.
Yeah. The desire to succeed and everything like that. Amazing. I mean, Firas, thank you so much for taking us through your journey. We really, really appreciate you and think the world of you, of course. And yeah, thanks for giving us an hour on your Friday super late night. You're in Berlin, right?
Yeah, it's midnight now. Thank you so much.
Oh, have a wonderful night. Enjoy the beer.
Yeah.
All right. We'll chat soon.
See you both. Thank you so much for having me.
Bye. Bye. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good
Cheers.
night.
Bye.
Bye.